There are many reasons people get overlooked when they should have an autism diagnosis. Autistic people are brilliant at camouflaging and masking, or maybe we just think we are. We try to blend in with other people. People still may notice that there's something not quite right about you, but at the same time, you're managing to avoid getting diagnosed as autistic, which is not a good thing. If you want to get an autism diagnosis for your child, then you need everyone to be able to see what it is that you see in them. Historically, most diagnoses were for white boys, so a lot of research was focused in that direction. So if you weren't a white boy, it was a lot harder to get diagnosed. Um, a lot of autistic people have an inner world, so they live inside themselves. So they try to internalize all their discomforts, try not to stand out. And that can make it really difficult to identify someone that has autistic traits. Girls are especially good at this. They internalize everything and they can be seen as the good girl. So why would anybody be worried about them? If you've got high intelligence, you're less likely to be noticed as being autistic. You learn the behaviours that come naturally to others, so you learn how to act like a normal person, and therefore you don't get noticed. But all the time, your brain is telling you what you should be doing, and it's just learned behaviour, not behaviour that comes naturally to you. The stereotype white boy, I'm guilty of believing that myself for many years. I would never have considered younger that I was autistic. I knew I was different and I knew I had problems. I couldn't make friends. I didn't know how to start a conversation. I didn't know when it was my turn to speak, but I had no idea that that was due to autism. I just thought I was shy. I'd always been told I was shy. So that was my answer to everything. So I'm guilty of this as well. Some children are so good at being good at school that the teachers don't notice there's anything wrong with them. The only thing that I was complained about by any of my teachers was that I didn't speak, I didn't take part in class discussions, I never answered any questions. That was just me internalising everything and being silent, not wanting to be perceived, not wanting anyone to notice me, not wanting to stick out in the class in any way. So just blending into the background, not speaking, not drawing attention to myself. When my son was young, I thought he was deaf. He was about 3, he'd be playing in his own little world. I'd call him to tell him that his dinner was ready or something. He wouldn't respond at all. If he was engrossed playing with something on his own and I called his name, he didn't get any response whatsoever. I eventually got so worried about this that I took him to have his hearing tested, and he passed the hearing test with flying colours. Now, to me as a parent, okay, that's great. He can hear, brilliant, but that doesn't explain the behaviour. That doesn't explain why he never hears me when I'm talking to him. So looking back now, there should have been a follow-up to that. Okay, your son doesn't respond when you speak to him. We've tested his hearing. It's fine. So what else is going on? But no follow-up. Nothing else happened. So I just carried on with my life, knowing that my child was just ignoring me, which could be a bit frustrating. Later on, when he started talking, when he was about 4, he couldn't form words properly. He had his own little language, which I was the only one that could understand. So again, I thought, okay, this isn't how my other child developed. There's something different going on here. He needs help. Took him back to the doctors, told the doctor about his speaking problems. So he was sent for speech therapy. He had speech therapy for about a year. And eventually he did start to speak so that other people could understand him. But again, looking back, why did he have so many problems? Why was nothing chased up on? Why was it never pursued further? Now I've learned as much as I have about autism, I can look back and think to myself, he was a white boy. He liked to play on his own. He didn't respond when people spoke to him. He had problems speaking himself. These are all classic signs that my son was autistic, and I didn't know. And nobody else seemed to know either. And when you look into it, autism as a diagnosis was first put forward in the 1940s, and my son was a young child in the 1990s. Why is it so hard to get a diagnosis for your child? Looking forward to the future now. My grandson is at school. What happens if he's autistic or ADHD even, and you want to get him diagnosed? Teachers only have so many hours in the day and they get sent on a course. They'll learn about autism and ADHD. But if they're getting taught the stereotypical things to look for, So they might not notice it in a girl, or they might not notice it in a child that internalizes everything. It's going to make it really difficult for them. The longer they're a teacher, the more experience they get, they're probably going to get a lot better at spotting these things. But to start off with, it's going to be really difficult for them, especially if they've only seen the stereotypes, which we all know now don't really apply properly. Makes it really difficult. So there's not enough training in especially girls and minority groups and what their presentation of autism or ADHD can look like. Current stats in the UK, I think, means that if you've got a class of 30 children, statistically you're likely to have one autistic child, and statistically you're likely to have 3 ADHD children. Obviously, the autistic child could also have ADHD, where there's a high prevalence of crossover here. And that would make it even more difficult to spot, because autism and ADHD, as we all know, mask each other. I have both, and I managed to go through life until I was in my 50s without figuring that out. So yeah, there's a comorbidity of autism and ADHD, which muddies the water even further. So you've got this problem where, as a parent or a grandparent, you can notice something about your child, but trying to convince other people can be really difficult. So if your child behaves perfectly well at school, the teacher's going to go, yeah, there's no problem. Your child is, really well behaved. They don't have any issues at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Whereas you could be seeing your child when they come home from school, you're seeing the child that's been struggling to mask and behave all day at school, where they can't be themselves, and they come home and you see the result of that, which can be hard to watch. So poor people are less likely to get a diagnosis because these things cost money in some countries. If you're in the UK, you can get a diagnosis on the NHS, but it's time consuming. You could be waiting years. When you're looking at children as well, you've got this added thing where people think they'll just grow out of it. They'll learn, they'll adapt, and that can be true, but it doesn't mean there isn't an issue. So it is really difficult for people. So as a parent, what can you do? As a grandparent, what can you do? You've got to learn to advocate. If you're seeing behavior at home and you know that it could be autism or ADHD and the school don't believe you, you need to go further. You need to see your GP, you need to give evidence, you need to learn as much as you can about it, so that you're fully armed to stick up for your child and provide all the evidence that you can to convince these people in a position of authority that your child or grandchild needs the extra help. So you really do need to become an advocate for your child or your family member and get them the help that they deserve and that they need. I've just spent the last few years feeling like I really let my kids down. My son got diagnosed with autism as an adult. My daughter got diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. Obviously, I pushed them and gave them the clues because I looked into this as an adult. But I feel really bad. I feel like I should have done something sooner. They both had really poor experiences at school, and I feel like I should have helped them more. So if anyone's got any advice, please put it in the comments below. Please just help someone. If you've got a family member and you know that they need help and they need an advocate, just step up, help people out. We do need help and we deserve it. Thanks for listening.